So we are fast approaching the end of the year, and there's always two videos that go up in this channel as the year is coming to a close. This is the first of them. It's my picks, not best of. There's a reason for that, which I'll explain after the intro, which I'm going to play now. So yeah, picks of 2023. Now there was a time in this channel, a long time ago, when it used to be an actual best of, because this was basically the pre-pod, well, it's not the pre-pod days, it was pre-generation 2 pod days. Well, we're still at generation 1 of pods, so we're talking about the Dual just got released. Well, not just got released, the Dual was released about halfway through 2016 from what I remember, or was it 2015? I think it was 2016. And the best of 2016, 2017, this was generation 2 going into generation 3. That was when I started to realise, especially the year before COVID, which was best of 2019, that the problem with the industry is that it was being flooded by one particular type of device and everything else was being shoved to the corner. Ever since then, especially the best of, or what became the picks of 2021, 2022, and now the picks of 2023, same things kind of happen. You know, rinse and repeat, except this time it's the disposable market that's basically flooded the UK. I have not picked a best disposable. No. Because they're all the, well, it's unfair saying they're all the same, but a lot of them are using the same damn liquids. They are. That's why I kind of gave up doing disposable reviews, and I did do a few. Not as many as some reviewers who reviewed practically every disposable that got released, but I did do about 6 or 7 disposable reviews this year. But as people have probably noticed, round about August, September, I basically stopped doing them because I was noticing a pattern with disposables. Yes, the outside of that, how the disposable looks completely different from each other, but it's what's inside that counts. And a lot of these disposable companies are getting the liquids from the exact same liquid manufacturer, Hang Seng in Shenzhen in China. It's Hang Seng that's making about 85, probably 90% of the liquids that you're seeing, the salt-based liquids that you're seeing inside the majority of the disposables that you're seeing currently in the UK. And the reason that Hang Seng have become the top of doing this is simple: cost. Hang Seng have always been known for very, very extremely good bulk discount orders on liquid. A bit like the older company Decang, way back in the Cartomizer days of disposable cigarette, well, not disposable, of Cigalite cigarettes. Very, very, very good discounts on their liquid. It's also the major reason that when you come across a disposable, they're very simple flavours. Watermelon ice, strawberry ice, mango ice, single or dual flavours, which is what Hang Seng cornered the market in. So that's why I'm not doing a best of or a pick for disposables. What I've decided to do for this year, oh, for the people wondering, Osiris 30, the setup's very rarely change in the room these days, folks. Osiris 30mm G-Class V2, Osiris 25mm, I think you know what tank's going to appear in my picks for RTAs, Osiris 25mm Q Mini, and, oh, there it is. I had the pod out because I was filling it. It's all SX Mini stuff I'm using. Oh, in fact, no, it's not. I've got this thing going with the annoying uncovered battery, the Raga AIO from Aspire. Still using this, thoroughly enjoying it, but that is fucking annoying me. The uncovered battery, and of course, the Pure Max from SX Mini. In the Pure Max, I've got the apple tobacco because I ran out of cherry tobacco from Drake's. In the Raga, I've got peach custard. In the Osiris 25, I've got the Black Vine from Rochford. And in the Osiris 20, no, not 25, the Osiris 30, I've got Peach Custard again. So, what I've done is I've broken down the packs into basically 3 separate categories. I've tried to keep it as simple as I possibly could. First category is pods. Second category is tanks or rebuildables of any description, because they're all lumped into the same category now. And the third and last category is basically mods or kits. So I've kept it as simple as I possibly can. First up, we're going to be looking at pods. And no, this is not in there. But hold on, Vic. You basically work for SX Mini. Why are you not supporting SX Mini by featuring the Pure Max as the bit? Because this hasn't been released. I know, there's a fucking shitload of people using it, but the retail version hasn't been released yet. This is not being released until January of 2024. What you're seeing now is basically the samples that were given out during the October Expo and some of the samples that have been shipped out to shop owners up and down the UK. If this was on a retail release, it would have featured, I'll be honest, it would have featured in the pod section, because the flavour from this thing is fucking phenomenal. For a pod kit, it's fucking phenomenal flavour out of this thing. It's not just me saying that. There's a whole bunch of other people like Nick Grim Green who done a review for the sample version of this. He said the same thing as well. It's also the reason I haven't done a review of this yet either, because it's not the retail version. I only review retail versions of the product. I don't review samples, even though if you go back to some of the earlier reviews, you'll see sample written on the mod. But that sample mod is packaged in the retail packaging for retail release, and the retail version is not different from the sample version. The big difference between this, which is the sample version of the Pure Max, and the retail version is what's going on up here. The pods changed. The filling mechanism, for a start, of the new retail versions of the pod has changed. So yeah, this is not being featured in the pod. The pod bit, because it's not on retail release yet. However, what we've got for pods at the very beginning of this year, the LVE Orion 2. Anyone remember that? It made a massive splash at the very end of January going into February of the beginning of this year, and it's basically a rework of the original Orion from Lost Vape. And what happened with Lost Vape at the end of 2022, no, in fact it wasn't even 2022, it was the beginning of 2022 going into the middle, is that Lost Vape essentially split. They basically split in half. The Lost Vape that you're seeing now, that's attending the likes of the UK Vapor Expo, that has got the Lost Vape website up, that are doing products that you don't recognise as Lost Vape, is because that original version of Lost Vape is the hollowed out remains of the old Lost Vape company. LVE is what we remember as the actual Lost Vape, because what basically happened was a whole bunch of designers for Lost Vape that made the Paranormal, that made the Therion, and that made a whole bunch of other very recognisable Lost Vape mods all upped and left at the same time. It was some kind of internal disagreement within the company, and that group of people, the designers, took with them the design rights to all the mods, and more importantly, the design rights to the original Lost Vape Orion. The LVE Orion 2 was launched at the very beginning of this year, at the very beginning of Generation 4 of the pod and AIO systems being launched, and I thought, and I still think, it's one of the best Orions ever made. I've still got it actually. It's sitting right under this camera, right there. Can't find any pods for it right now, but it's sitting right under the camera. It was a very, very, very good bit of kit. Much more heavier design than the original Lost Vape Orion, and it was basically just bulked and beefed up. Very, very good bit of kit. Second, we've got the, well, a Lux had to show up somewhere, right? We've got the Vaporesso Lux XR Max. Personally, it's one of my favourite Lux ranges from Vaporesso, and let's face it, Vaporesso have churned out a lot of Luxes over the past couple of years. For a lot of people, it will not be the best Lux in that class of Lux category. But for me, I thoroughly enjoyed using it for a good, what, I think I used that thing for, what, 5 months? Because I stopped using it in, I think I stopped using it last month, from what I remember. I think it was last month I stopped using it, but again, the Lux range from Vaporesso has branched out into all sorts of different devices. Originally launched, the Lux originally was a mod, but then it suddenly got turned into pods and AIOs, just like the Aegis line was originally a mod for Geek Vape, and now it's became a pod, because they've decided to take that name and branch it out into other categories of what Vaporesso are offering. Up next, the Oxva Slim Pro. Not the original, but the Pro version of the Slim, XLIM. We all knew that Oxva was bound to show up somewhere in the pod category. They make pretty damn good pods, folks. They do. It doesn't really matter what version of the Slim you get your hands on. Personally, I like the Pro for the extra functionality you actually got in the Pro. And the good thing about OXVA, or Oxva as I like to call them, the good thing about OXVA, again, like Vaporesso, they're coils that you get inside those pods, and the separate coils for the Pro versions of the Oxva products, you can't fault the coils. You really can't fault the coils. They will give you decent all-round flavour across the board for the entire range of OXVA pod products. Personally, I went for the Slim Pro. Talking about pods that were bound to show up, yeah, the Caliburn. There was bound to be one of the Caliburns in here. Personally, I went for the G3, which I don't have in this. It's downstairs. I was making a coffee and I left the fucking Caliburn G3 downstairs. The Caliburn G3. Now, if anyone's been vaping for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years, you'll remember when the original Caliburn first launched. And the Caliburn first launched about 5 months after Joule was first launched over in the United States. UL were there first. They were there first with a refillable pod. They were there first with a replaceable coil and a pod tank, so you didn't have to chuck away the entire tank and replace it with a new one. They were the first ones to do this, and the Caliburn since then, over the past 4 or 5 years, has basically branched out to all different sorts of categories within the Caliburn family. Personally, I'm a big fan of the G3. More people are fans of the G2, but I like the G3. I've always liked the G3, and I would have showed you it right now, but it's down in the kitchen right now. And last but by no means, in fact, no, hold on. Yeah, I've already, why did I put the Slim Pro twice? I've got the Slim Pro, and above that I've got Oxva Slim Pro. Why did I put the Slim Pro twice? No, in fact, hold on. That's the Slim SQ Pro. Is that this? It's this! We've got 2 Slims from the same company. It's this little fella. I have been thoroughly enjoying this with the disposable single-use pods. Not the refillable pods, but the disposable ones that came... Where's that box? Hold on. It came... The fuck did I put the box? Okay, I can't find the box, but they basically gave me a couple of boxes worth of pre-filled pods. And I've been thoroughly enjoying the SQ Pro Slim with the disposable single-use pods on top, because they're really good flavours. Really good flavours. So that's, yeah, that means Oxva's got 2 slots in the pod category, the Slim Pro and the SQ Pro. Where the fuck did I put those boxes of pods? They were sitting there a minute ago and now they're fucked off. So that's basically the pod section, all done and dusted. It's filled. The categories are that particular category, the pod category, is filled with names that you would expect to be there, basically. OXVA, UL with the Caliburn, Vaporesso, obviously you would expect them to be in there, because let's face it, those 3 companies have essentially cornered the pod market. They've essentially cornered it, especially UL. I think this year UL must have released about a dozen different Caliburn variants. That's basically one pod every month from January up to now. Because here's the thing. Where is it? Where is it? I can't bloody find it now. There's a new UL Caliburn is either about to get released or is being released at the very beginning of next year, and it's in that kind of form factor, but with a very, very big screen, and I mean a huge fucking screen that takes up half the bottom end of one side. That pod has got a bigger screen on it than a lot of dual battery mods that are currently on the market. That little fella is either already been released or is getting released at the beginning of next year, and that's the kind of thing that UL and Vaporesso and to a certain extent OXVA have been doing for a number of months now. They've been regularly bringing out new pod after new pod after new pod to keep their pod selections refreshed in the market, and you can't really blame them for doing that, because here's the thing. The pod market is continuously changing. We are now probably at the end of generation 5. That's what I'm thinking. This generation of pods went through a very, very quick cycle. I noticed it went through an extremely quick cycle, because Generation 5, at least to me, Generation 5, the 5th wave of pods, kind of began round about March of this year. And if you look at the track of what happened with Vaporesso, UL and OXVA, they basically flooded the market. They literally, especially UL, flooded the market, which they'd never done before, with pod after pod after pod after pod after pod, all the way through the summer months, and then it dipped to practically nothing as we went into midway through autumn. I think we're almost at the end of this particular cycle of pods. I think we are, because the releases in this cycle was squeezed in the middle and tailed off very, very quick at the end. We can only wait and see what's going to happen when we look at January, February and March, the first 3 months of 2024. But I think we're at the end of this cycle now, and it's been a very, very quick one, actually. Very quick one. Anyway, moving on to the RBAs. Now, I'm not splitting this up into RTAs, RDAs and borrow tanks, because there wasn't enough drippers that got released this year to warrant its own category. There wasn't really enough tanks this year to warrant its own category, which meant the whole thing would just be basically based off of borrow tanks, because that's all that seemed to be getting released this year. Number one in that list, in no particular order, right? Number one in that list, the Digiflavor Drop 2. Some people did not enjoy the Drop 2. I thought it was okay. Not as good as the original, but I thought it was an alright RDA. And let's face it, when it comes to RDAs, there was really, really slim pickings for 2023, because not a lot of companies were interested in doing drippers, and not a lot of companies for that matter were just interested in doing RBAs in general. Digiflavor Drop 2 basically gets a mention because it was one of the few drippers released this year that actually was kind of semi-decent. Essentially, that's why it got mentioned. Up next, the Aspire Atlantis GT. Just mentioned because it's basically a bit of nostalgia. It's the only reason I put it in. I think I used the tank for about two and a half months. Then I got fed up with it and kind of screwed it onto a mount somewhere. But the Atlantis, the Aspire Atlantis, the very first one, is the tank that basically launched the stock coil sub-ohm tank craze. Aspire were the first company to come out with a stock coil tank that ran under 1 ohm and had direct to lung capabilities. In fact, the original Atlantis, its max wattage rating was that high that no mods released in the general public at the time of the Atlantis hitting retail actually managed to hit that tank's maximum wattage. It was the Atlantis, the original Atlantis tank, that launched the first round of the wattage wars. Because think about it. The Atlantis got released sometime at the very end of 2014 going into 2015. And it got released with the it got released with the Aspire Carbon mod, which was a tubular mod, built-in LiPo, that was rated to go very close but not quite to the maximum rated 55 watts of that Atlantis tank. There was no mod out there at the time that could push the Atlantis to the max wattage. Because of that tank, the wattage wars began. And let's face it, the Atlantis at the time, with the whole run of stock coilers that came out after the Atlantis got released, Smock was second on the market with the original TFV tank, and then there was a couple of other companies that came out. The Atlantis was top of the board. For a good number of months it was top of the board. The Atlantis GT is basically a reimagining of the original Atlantis tank. It's basically the old Atlantis brought up to date with current expectations of stock coil sub-ohm tanks. Mesh coil, high airflow, pretty damn good flavour. That's why the GT get mentioned, because it was a little bit of nostalgia for me. Up next, Mike Vapes and Thunderhead Creations Blaze Solo RTA. Again, there was not a lot of tanks that got released in 2023. Even fewer drippers got released in 2023. But the tanks that did get released, they were pretty damn good. I used the Blaze Solo on top of, I think it was on top of this. Wasn't on top of the Q Mini. I think it was on top of the G2. I used that Blaze Solo for a good 5 months, 5 or 6 months, and the only reason I stopped using it is because I switched over to the Osiris tanks. If it wasn't for the Osirises being released, I would still be using the Blaze Solo today. It was a bloody good tank, single coiler, from Mike Vapes, and the flavour was phenomenally good, which is what you would expect from a single coil RTA. So Blaze Solo gets a mention. Up next, this was a bit like Marmite for some people. You either love it or you hate it. It was the Steam Crave Meson RTA. Little bit of a offshoot in the general direction of what Steam Crave were known for, with the big huge tanks that they generally tend to make, specifically for the EU and the UK market. The Meson was a tank which was a little bit different to the other tanks that Steam Crave had made before. Some people liked it, some people hated it. Personally, I thought it was a decent tank. Not the kind of tank that you would expect from Steam Crave, but it was a good offering for basically an RTA section that was bone dry in the middle of this year. Because the Meson popped up in a desert. A desert, because there was fuck all being released when it came to RTAs, and it was a pretty good seller for them as well, from what I remember. Up after that, we've got another Thunderhead Creations bit of kit. And a Borrow was bound to pop up at some point. The Thunderhead Creations Torin Borrow RBA. Where the fuck did I put that? Is that it? There it is there. The Torin with peach custard. No, that's not. I'm too lazy to pop it into a Borrow and fire the thing up. The fuck's in this? It's some custard thing, but it's not peach. It must be another company's custard. But yeah, that's the Torin. And for you can see it, I'm still using the fucking thing because there's still juice in there. I just haven't used it for about 3 or 4 weeks because I'm using this right now with the Aspire Borrow currently sitting inside. But again, decent performing Borrow. It's not these high-end Borrows that you get for the likes of the billet box. This is a mainstream Borrow, like a lot, in fact not a lot, all basically of the Borrows that I looked at this year. It's a mainstream Borrow, but what Thunderhead decided to do with the Torin is do something a little bit different when it came to how the airflow interacted with the bed of the actual deck. And it gave pretty damn good flavour. That's why this thing is still being used by me, and I think I reviewed this about, what, 5 months ago? Still using it. That's why it's sitting underneath the camera. Up after that, I just typed in Vapors Cloud Osiris. I didn't put in 25 or 30 because it's up to you which one you want to get your hands on. Personally, if you're all about the flavour, I would go for the 30mm. But again, a lot of people don't like big bulky tanks like this, which is why the 25mm Osiris got released. And I've been using these two tanks since they got released and got reviewed in this channel, and I've been thoroughly enjoying the both of them for a number of months now. For a number of months. I honestly cannot see any tank coming out, at least in the next 2 or 3 months, that will get me to stop using these two, because they are extremely good tanks. Extremely good. That's why I'm still using them to this day. So yeah, Vapors Cloud Osiris, 25 or 30mm, doesn't matter which one you choose. Personally, I would go for the 30mm. And lastly, a little bit of mouth to lung. This little tiny fella, the Cthulhu Mods Valor mouth to lung RTA. Now here's the thing, if the Valor had not been released, my pick of mouth to lung RTAs would have been the Vapefly Albrecht 2. Because again, the Albrecht 2 mouth to lung RTA from Vapefly was a phenomenally good flavour based mouth to lung RTA, but it was pipped to the post with this, and as you can see, still a bit of liquid in there. I'm still using it because I lifted it from the desk. I mean, right now I'm mainly running the tobaccos through the Pure Max, but now and again I still lift up the Valor. It's one of the smaller based mouth to lung RTs, which is probably why it edged it a little bit over the Albrecht, because the Albrecht is a much taller tank compared to the Valor. But if you're not about the pods and you want a good, solid performing single coil, obviously, mouth to lung RTA, you've got a choice of two this year. If you can't find the Cthulhu Mods Valor, which you probably can't because they don't make enough of the fucking things, you'll need to go for the Vapefly Albrecht 2. Now the Albrecht 2, like the Valor, they're both very good all-round RTAs, where the Valor seems to edge it just a little bit over the Albrecht 2 is when it comes to the baseline flavours. The baseline flavours, if you are an NET vapor, naturally extracted tobacco, and you only vape naturally extracted tobaccos in your mouth to lung RTAs, you'll want to go for the Valor first. If you can't find the Valor, then go for the Albrecht 2. Phenomenally good little mouth to lung tank, the Valor. Phenomenally good. Anyway, that wraps up the RBA section. Now we're moving on to the final main section, which is mods of any kind of meh. And again, there wasn't fucking many released this year. It's like disposable, pod, AIO, disposable, pod. There has been a number of rather good mods. Now, I'm also lumping in borrow devices that comes with a tank, because technically it's a mod, right? I'm also lumping in borrow devices. Up first, the Dovpo Ethos, which I have got sitting right here. There's the Dovpo Ethos. I don't use it anymore though, because the button is fucked. But hold on, Vic, why are you featuring in it? Well, here's the thing. The button's fucked because I'm an idiot. I'm a ham-fisted moron, and I've dropped that thing that many fucking times. That's probably why the button stopped working. The Dovpo Ethos, though, was a dual 18650 borrow tank device, and it was a pretty solid performer until the button stopped working on it. A lot of people liked the Dovpo Ethos. It was first announced, and I think it was launched soon after the May Expo here in the UK. There's still a lot of people that are thoroughly enjoying the Ethos. I'm not one of them because mine stopped working. Again, probably my fault because I dropped it one too many times. Up next, the Geek Vape Z200. That had to be in there, because let's face it, when it comes to standard, everyday, dual battery box mods, there wasn't really that many released this year. The Z200 was one of the more classier designs. In fact, is this it here? I think that's it there. Is it? Is that the Z200? I think that's the Z200 there. Yeah, the one with the big screen in front of it. Because I don't have any other big Geek Vape mods here. It's only that one. Or is it this? Is that the Z200? I don't know. Oh, I think that's the Z200 because this has got Geek Vape Z. Yeah, so what the fuck is this? Geek Vape Touch. I don't have a clue. I think that's the Z200. Yeah, I think that's it. They've both got big touchscreens on the front, right? So they've both got touchscreens. But when it came to dual battery box mods being released on the mainstream market, priced at the mainstream market price, there wasn't that many released in 2023. There really wasn't. If you look at what was being released, it was mainly AIOs. Mainly AIOs or borrow tank devices for that matter. The Geek Vape Z200 was a solid in fact, that's why it's one of those two that I just showed you, right? That's why it's still sitting in front of me, because sometimes I still grab it with the stock coil tank on top. It was a solid performing dual battery box mod, which is the kind of thing you would basically expect from Geek Vape. Solid performing mod with a decent flavoursome tank sitting on top. That's why the Z200 got featured. Up after that, we've got the Vaping Taita, which I think is this. It is. The Vaping, or is that the Kuka? Because the Kuka, no, the Kuka's not mentioned here. I think, is this the Taita? Or is this this is the fucking Kuka? Okay, the Taita was the one that came out before this. Now, the reason the Kuka was not featured is because, well, to me, the Taita AIO, which came out before this one, the Taita AIO was a little bit better, what's the word I'm looking for, constructed than the Kuka, because the problem is the Kuka was a full plastic shell. Fucking phenomenal little borrow tank sitting in here, but for me it was the Taita that came out on top. If you can't find the Taita and you're after a basic borrow tank, the Kuka is another one you can look out for from Vaping, but for me the Taita slightly edged over it. After that, we've basically got another AIO, which is the Steam Crave Meson AIO. Again, Steam Crave were rather busy this year. Rather busy. So they came out with the Meson all-in-oneer, which was basically their entry into the borrow tank-esque market. It was basically their entry into it. It was not as much of a hit as Steam Crave were hoping it was going to be, and one of the major reasons that it didn't really make it into all that people's shopping lists is because at that particular moment in time there was about half a dozen other borrow tank devices that were being released onto the market. Steam Crave's timing was basically off with the release of the Meson AIO system. It was a damn good borrow tank device though. If you can find it in a bargain bin somewhere, pick it up. It's actually pretty damn good. Up after that, we've got the Dovpo Themis or Themis mod, which is honestly not a clone, absolutely not a clone of a .com or a .mod thingamabob. What the fuck was the name of that mod from .mod? It looked remarkably like the Themis. Remarkably like the Themis. I'd show you the Themis, but it was given away in a giveaway not long ago. It was one of the older .mods. Was it the dot? No, it wasn't the dot box. Was it the dot box? Somebody in the comments will remember it. But the Themis looked remarkably like a dot mod, one of the older dot mods. But it was, they had managed to alter the button layout. This is Dovpo we're talking about. They managed to alter the button layout and the curves of the mod, so it wasn't an exact replica of what .mod did. But again, slim pickings for mods this year, folks. And to me, the Themis was actually a decent looking bit of kit. It was a decent looking bit of kit. Decent enough mod from Dovpo. Up after that, the Vape Smarter. They had to pop up because they're a fucking good company. The Vape Smarter UK Reaper. Yeah, very, very, very unusual design from Stu and Alfie. Hi Alfie and Stu. But very unusual design from the folks over at Vape Smarter. And again, it was basically Vape Smarter dipping their toe into the whole thing that was going on when that Reaper was released. I would show you it, and I thought the Reaper was up fucking here somewhere, but I've moved it. I don't know whether damn things went. I've been moving things around in the room, trying to figure out what I'm going to have up in the shelf and what I'm going to have up in the history cupboard. But yeah, had to put the Vape Smarter UK Reaper in there. It was one of the more unusual devices that got released in 2023. And plus, Vape Smarter is a fucking good company, so they're bound to have been in here at some point. Lastly, this. Even though the fact that this annoys the crap out of me, I had to put the Raga AIO in here. Had to put the Raga AIO now. Vapors Cloud have released the SAN. Unfortunately, I have not had the time to actually review it. So the review for the SAN AIO system is probably going to be up in the first week of January. Under testing, because I'm actually testing the SAN out, between the Raga AIO and the SAN, they're both really fucking good devices, folks. And the way I'm looking at it is this: if you can't get your hands on the Raga, because again, Aspire's been having manufacturing problems, they're not making enough of them basically. If you can't get your hands on the Raga, get your hands, did I say Thunderhead? It was, no, it's not Thunderhead Creation SAN, it's Vapors Cloud SAN. Yeah, if you can't get your hands on this, get your hands on the Vapors Cloud SAN, because it's a really, really decent, solid performing bottle tank based AIO. Really solid performing. But for me, I had to put this little fella in here, even though the fact that the fucking battery is wide open, there's no battery compartment in here, has been annoying the crap out of me since I started using the thing. You know, coupled with Aspire's own bottle tank, which is that little fella in there, it's a damn good combo with damn good flavour. Damn good combo with damn good flavour. And I've been thoroughly enjoying using this. Thoroughly enjoying using it. Good bit of kit for a mainstream priced current AIO that's just been released, relatively speaking. It's a good bit of kit, the Raga. Really good bit of kit. And that basically wraps up my picks for 2023 when it comes to devices. Now, there is going to be one special mention in here, and it's going to be the Vecto build kit by Graph X. Yeah, that build kit that I looked at a couple of months ago. Still using it to this day. Still using it. It's currently under the desk right now where I've got the rest of the buildy stuff from Coilmaster and all of that. But if you're doing rebuildables, you'll basically want to get your hands on the Vecto kit, because you'll be lucky to get your hands on the Coilmaster kits these days, because Coilmaster basically went bankrupt. Their site's still up, but I don't think they're taking orders now, because Coilmaster as a company, basically for all intents and purposes, they shut down. The Vecto build kit by Graph X is a very, very worthy successor, essentially, to the Coilmaster kits that rebuilders like myself are used to. And the good thing about the Vecto kit is it's much, much more compact package-wise compared to what Coilmaster were offering to rebuilders 5 or 6 years ago. So if you're out and about, or you're going to be taking rebuildables with you to the next UK Vapor Expo, or for that matter any kind of Vape Expo, the Vecto kit is going to be much more compact and much more easily packaged away in your suitcase compared to the fucking huge bulky thing that Coilmaster came out with as the Coilmaster Pro kit before they basically went belly up. And the Vecto kit, technically speaking, for all the stuff that you get in there, it's actually cheaper than the old Coilmaster Pro kit. It's cheaper than the old Coilmaster Pro kit, and you get more stuff in it compared to the Coilmaster Pro kit when it came out. And there we go, folks. That's it. That was my picks for 2023. Now again, there's going to be some items missing that might surprise some people. Again, I don't get to review everything that comes out onto the market. Some American reviewers get stuff that I don't get, and I get stuff that some American reviewers don't get. It depends on what kind of mood the company is in when they're sending items out. That's what it comes down to. Depends what kind of mood some companies are in when they get some items out. Generally speaking though, I usually get most, but again not all, items that get released onto the market. But for me, for all this stuff, and there's been what, something like 210 reviews. No, sorry, it's been 210 videos. It's been something like 190-ish reviews that's been released this year, averaging round about 3 or 4 reviews a week, average. So out of the 180, 190 odd video reviews that I've done in this channel, those have been my picks. If there's a standout item, out there, which I'm going to say, hey, if you don't have this item, I suggest that you probably go and look for this at your local vape shop online. It's going to be 2 things. I'm going to lump the Osiris as number 1. If you don't have an Osiris yet, either the 25mm or the 30mm, go and get one. Simple as that. You'll be hard pushed to find any other mainstream RTA coming out in the next 2 to 3 months that's going to beat these things for flavour. You'll be very hard pushed. From the RTAs that I know that's going to be coming out in the next 2 or 3 months, they're going to have a hard time going up against the Osirises. A very hard time. Secondly, if you don't have an AIO, and you've been thinking about getting an AIO, the Raga from Aspire, or if you can get the SAN, S-A-N, from Vapors Cloud, get your hands on that, because it's a really, really good AIO system. But you're more than likely to find this in your local vape shop, because Aspire's coverage is much bigger than Vapors Cloud's coverage is. This is a good little AIO system with a pretty damn good little borrow tank sitting in here that you get as a package deal. Good flavour, easy to use. The only fucking annoying thing is your battery's wide open. I don't know why the fuck they did that. Anytime I look at this, that just pisses me off. But the fact it's a damn good system kind of offsets the fact that your battery's hanging out in the wide open. Yeah. Just such a good flavour from this little bit of kit. It really is. And there we go, folks. That was the picks of 2023. There is going to be one more video up on this channel on New Year's Eve, which is going to be Sunday. I'm going to be recording it, hopefully before I get drunk. It took me about 2 days to recover after the last fucking UK vape show this year. I absolutely fucking hammered that bottle of Metaxa. 2 days to recover. Oh my fucking god. I'm not doing that again. This is the trouble with Metaxa. It's a very sweet Greek brandy, and the sweeter the drink is, the worse the fucking hangover gets. Oh, I suffered for days after that fucking live show. But yeah, I'm going to be on the whiskey. Going to be on the whiskey for New Year instead, because at least with the whiskey, the hangover's not going to be so bad for January the 1st. But yeah, there's going to be one more video going up, and that'll be on New Year's Eve, and that will be That Was the Year That Was 2023, where I basically wrap up what's been going on this year and what I think could happen for UK vaping in 2024. If you're not going to be around to watch the That Was the Year That Was, because it has been released on New Year's Eve and a lot of you are going to be at parties and stuff, I hope you have a very, very happy, safe and prosperous new year, and I will see you for the kick-off of the reviews round about January the 3rd or the 4th of next year. That is it from me, folks. As always, thanks for watching, and yeah, have a good one.